Hey everyone, join me in this tutorial where we learn how to crochet the linen stitch using the long half double crochet. This stitch is such a cozy and comfy stitch. It creates a nice thick but light fabric that's great for throws, scarves, and cozy sweaters. The stitch pattern is a simple one row repeat, which creates a reversible fabric and is nice and easy to remember. I love to work the stitch pattern in a thicker yarn using a larger size hook to get that airy and fluffy feel to the fabric. The linen stitch is often made using a single crochet, but I'm using a long half double crochet stitch in this version to achieve a softer fabric. You can find the stitch charts and written stitch pattern on the blog post for this tutorial over on my website. I'll leave the link in the description below. Ready to give it a try? Let's get going. So the yarn I'm going to use today is Charisma Sorbet by Loops and Threads. It's considered a bulky weight, number 5. So it's nice and soft and it's got lots of thickness to it for a blanket. I'm also going to use a size 7mm hook. I like to go on the big side here. It does suggest an 8, but I find the 7 does a trick for me. Depending on whether you're a tight or loose crocheter, you may want to alter that. If you find you're on the tight side, I would definitely go up to an 8 because you want this swatch to be airy and fluffy. So let's get going. So we're going to loop the yarn around our finger and fold it over for our pretzel. Insert your hook under the arm and pull on the two ends. Now you can pull them apart so they get a little closer to your hook. Tightens it on, but you don't want it too tight. You want it to be able to move back and forth. I like to wrap the yarn through my finger and over the back of my hand. That's how I create my tension. I've seen people just let it fall through their fingers, and I've seen other people wrap it around a couple fingers. Whatever works best for you, this is how you get a little bit of tension on your yarn and you can control it. I place my thumb at the base of the loop on the hook, and that helps me create the tension as well so that there's an even pull between my two hands. So this stitch is on an even number, so I'm going to do a swatch of 16 stitches. I like to do enough stitches that I can get a feel for the fabric, and I also like to be able to get my gauge off of that in a fairly good size so that it's not too small. So let's go ahead and do our 16 chain, and then I move my thumb up. So I do about 3 at a time and move my thumb up. So that's 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and I want 16. So there is my foundation chain of 16, and then I also want to chain 1 to start the next row. So you're really chaining 17, but you're working with 16 stitches. So we're going to insert the hook into the second chain from the hook and create a single crochet for our first row. So this first row is going to be a foundation row. We're just setting up our stitch, so we won't be repeating this particular row going forward, but the rest of the stitch will be one row that's repeated throughout. It creates a reversible fabric, which is really nice. So let's just get this row set up. So we're going to chain 1 and we're going to work into skipping the next chain. We're going to work into the next chain after that. So 2 away from the one you just worked. So work your single crochet and it creates this space. Chain 1, which creates another space. Skip over the next chain and work into the following chain. And it's always a single crochet on this row. So single crochet, chain 1, that's what we're repeating. And you work into 2 chains away from that. So again, chain 1, skip the next chain and single crochet into the next one. Chain 1, miss the next chain and single crochet into the next one. And you're going to do that all the way across. Always missing a chain before you work into the next one. And you end up at the end here with 1 left. Don't mistake that knot for a chain. So this is going to be your last stitch. So you're going to have 2 single crochets right together. So work that final single crochet, and now you can see you've got a row of single crochet and chain 1 spaces. They create these little spaces in there. And we're going to chain one and turn. So this next row is going to be the row that you're going to repeat throughout this stitch pattern. So the first stitch is going to be a single crochet. Always start and end with a single crochet. Then you're going to chain one, and you're going to skip over the single crochet that you worked in the row below, and you're going to work into the stitch that was missed on 2 rows below, which was actually our foundation chain. So again, this row is going to look a little different than all the others because we're working into the foundation chain instead of stitches that have already been worked. So you're going to miss that single crochet. You're going to wrap the yarn around to start your half double crochet. You're going to insert the hook into the chain that was missed, not the space, not the chain one space, but the actual chain that was missed. So insert it in and through to the back, wrap the yarn around and pull it through. Pull the loop up so it's equal to all the lengths on the other. So your hook is kind of horizontal. So this is called a long half double crochet because you're pulling this first loop up a little higher than you normally would. So you're going to wrap the yarn around and pull it through all 3 loops. So again, you're going to chain one, you're going to miss the single crochet that you just worked on the row before, and you're going to work into the stitch that was missed 2 rows before over top of the chain one space. So wrap the yarn around, and this is going to be your half double crochet. Inserting to the back, pull your loop through and up. So you've got your long loop, and then you're going to pull through all 3. So your stitch pattern is going to be chain one, long half double crochet all the way across. So chain one, long half double crochet in the missed stitch under the chain one space, pull the loop up, and then wrap it around and pull through all 3. So you're using the thumb and finger on this hand to really help guide you through this fabric. So we're going to chain one again, and then I move it down and I find that stitch. So miss the single crochet, I find that stitch that was missed. See that loop? I kind of open it up a little, wrap the yarn around and put your hook into it, pull up a long loop, wrap your yarn around and pull it through all 3. So chain one, long half double crochet in the missed stitch from 2 rows below, and chain one, and again long half double crochet. So when you're just getting this stitch started, pull it up there, your fabric's going to twist around a little bit. So you kind of have to manage it with this finger and this thumb on your opposite hand. Chain one. And now we're going into the last one that's missed. That's our last chain one space. Wrap the yarn around, insert the hook, wrap the yarn around again, pull it up, finish your half double crochet, and then you're going to end your row with a single crochet. And it's worked into that last stitch. Remember how I said first and last stitch are always single crochet? Keeps your edges even. That's the end of our first row. And we're going to chain one, and we're going to turn our work. So that's the row we're going to work across, but this time I'm going to show you working into stitches that aren't a foundation chain. So let's go across again. So we're going to start with our single crochet. Then we're going to chain one, wrap the yarn around, and we're going to go looking for our stitch. So here's our chain one space from the row before. We don't want to work into that. We want to work into the stitch below it that was skipped. So there is the stitch, and you want both loops. So you're going to insert the hook as if that stitch were on this row, the same way under both loops, and you're going to take the hook straight to the back. So you're working over top of this chain one. So pull the loop through and up, long half double crochet, wrap the yarn around and pull it through all 3 loops. So there is your long half double crochet. As you work this stitch, you'll get this tension worked out. It's okay if they're a little bit loopier. You want the fabric to be nice and cozy and fluffy. So I'm not so worried. If you make these too tight, the fabric becomes very dense. So you actually want a loose tension. And that's why I've chosen to work with a 7mm. You may want to go up higher. So chain one, wrap the yarn around, and insert your hook into that stitch that was missed from 2 rows ago, under both of the loops to the back. Wrap your yarn around, pull it up to a long loop, and you can adjust it by pulling it with both hands. That's why I like this finger. It kind of helps me adjust this yarn. Then wrap it around again, and see, because I have it lying over the back of my hand, I don't actually have to wrap. I just have to either grab the yarn or lay it over the hook and pull it through all 3 loops. So chain 1, miss that next stitch, go in and under into the stitch that was missed, pull your loop through and up, yarn around and through all 3 loops. Chain 1, go into the next one, and it can be tricky to find this stitch. Sometimes you think you're jumping into the stitch after it, as long as you're consistent, but you really want to find the stitch that was missed. So yarn around into that stitch that was missed. It's nice to work with chunky yarn because the stitches are so much bigger, and then pull through all 3 loops. So let's finish off this row, working our way across and over top of those chain 1 spaces. And we go in here, create our long half double crochet, chain 1, and we're working into our last long half double crochet. And then we end again with a single crochet in the last stitch. So in a stitch like this, it's very important to count your stitches, because with the chain 1s and working into the row before and working half double crochets and single crochets, you don't want to be missing any stitches or adding any in, or your swatch is going to go all wonky. So let's go ahead and count our stitches. So the chain 1 spaces count as stitches, and the single crochet at the beginning and the end count as stitches. So we're going to count here: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. That's what we should have, is 16. If you don't, you might want to take it back and try again. So we're going to go ahead and chain 1 and turn our work. So you can kind of start to see what it's going to look like. You're getting these nice woven look of stitches worked over top of the row before every second stitch. So you're getting a nice linen stitch or a nice woven stitch look. So let's work one more row and take a look at that. So we're going to work a single crochet into the first stitch, and our next stitch is a chain 1. Now we're going to miss the half double crochet, the long half double crochet worked in the previous row, wrap our yarn around and work into the stitch from 2 rows ago. So go down and work into underneath both of those loops, wrap the yarn around and pull up your long half double crochet. You'll get a feel for that. Wrap the yarn around and pull it through. Chain 1, and again, wrap the yarn around, miss the long half double crochet, work into this stitch here. It's right next to that long half double crochet. The 2 loops are there. Put your hook underneath both, pull the yarn through up to a long half double crochet, wrapping the yarn around again and pull through all 3. Chain 1, wrap the yarn around, miss your long half double crochet, work into your next one. So you can take a look at the stitch. It gets a little confusing because the stitch is 2 rows ago. So you're wondering, well, where's the top of that stitch? But you get used to the look. It's facing you, and it has this nice loop. It has 2 strands that create that loop. So it's the one that faces towards you. You're going to put your hook in just as if it was a normal half double crochet stitch on the current row, and you're going to work it. Oops. So when you pull up your long half double crochet, sometimes everything goes flying. So just bring it back into control, and I pull up on the hook and down on the fabric, and that kind of evens out these 3 loops. So wrap the yarn around and pull it through. So we're going to chain one and work our way across into those previous stitches with long half double crochets. So keep on going through, and again, you get a feel for this stitch the more you do it. So we're going to end again with a single crochet and of course a chain one and turn. And now you're starting to get a feel for the look for this stitch. It has this nice woven look on both sides, and it has lots of spring to it, and it has a nice soft texture, a nice fluffy. It helps if the yarn is a little bit softer, but it has this nice airy fluffiness to it. So I'm going to go ahead and complete our swatch, and we'll take a look at it then. So I'm almost done my swatch. I have a nice square made here, and I'm going to show you how I finished the last row, because as you can see, as you go along, you're going to have these little chain loops along the way, and you don't want that on your finished piece. So if you're making yourself a blanket, you need a finishing row to this stitch pattern as well. So I'm going to show you how I finish off a swatch. So working back across again, I have my chain one and turn, and I'm going to do a single crochet into the first stitch. Now this is normally where I'll do my chain one. All my chain ones are going to turn into single crochets instead. So I did my first single crochet, then I'm going to do another crochet, a single crochet into the half double crochet from the row below. So just working into a normal stitch as if you would on any other swatch pattern. And then you have your chain one space sitting here. We're going to do the long half double crochet into that, pulling up our loop and finishing the half double crochet. And then the next stitch is going to be a single crochet. So instead of skipping this stitch, we go in and do a single crochet, and that's what we do all the way across. So we do our long half double crochet like we always have all the way up into that one from the previous row. And then instead of a chain one, we do a single crochet into the stitch we would normally skip. So what we're doing is we're basically finishing off this row. So everywhere there was a chain one space, instead we're doing a single crochet. So it's giving us a nice finish to this row. So let's just work our way across. Single crochet instead of the chain ones. Still working our long half double crochets into the rows below. And you should have a nice thick swatch. You could do this in other yarns. You could do it in lighter yarns if you want to. It just gives such a nice thick blanket in the chunky, and it makes it nice and soft because it's airy. If you were to do this with a fine yarn, you just wouldn't get the same look. So we're going to do half double crochet. Make sure you go into those stitches. It's a little tricky to find that sometimes. There it is. It's almost like you're looking at the stitches different when you have to go into them differently. Oops, I did a chain one. No chain one. Single crochet. Got so used to doing this stitch. So half double crochet into the last chain one space. Make sure you go under both those loops. There we go. And then we finish off with a single crochet in our last stitch. And then we'll cut our yarn and pull it through that loop, and we will have our finished swatch. So that final row gives you a nice finish. You don't have those chain one spaces anymore. It completes your swatch and it'll complete your project. So I've shown you the single color version of this. You could also do a multicolored version. You can switch the yarn every row or every 2 rows, play around with that. Again, it's really great for blankets and scarves because it's reversible. I've used it in my cozy throw pattern, which you can also find on my website. So have fun with this, and thanks again for joining me. Go create, and I will see you next time.